in 1992 in Dobsonville Hostel, which is a part of Soweto. And it was one of these kind of police, it was during a supposed police raid of the hostel where the police would gather outside the hostel and faff for about an hour and a half and then go in bits and pieces. So, you know, in the meantime I went in to see what was going to happen, what people were doing, and of course in one of the dormitories people were doing the usual, you know, drinking, partying, and just laughing about the cops' presence, because all the significant weapons had long been moved or buried or hidden or whatever. And it was kind of quite a nice, pleasant atmosphere. I mean, it wasn't a violent day. It hadn't been violent, I think, about a week or so in Dobsonville itself that I knew of. And everyone was having a good time. And then these guys in the denim jacket over the dress, which is a whole other story, and that guy, and then there's a guy in like a dust coat. There's a third picture. It's actually a triptych, but it's difficult to display. They said, take a picture, you know. So, and the guy had like a traditional shield and a spear, and you know, so it's like, it's cool, you know. I always used to carry like a body or two bodies with colour film for work, and then my personal stuff was always on a black and white body. It wasn't really a kind of picture that had any news or, I didn't think, value. So I shot it all in the black and white, and as it started happening, and as I started shooting, these guys started coming out and posing and displaying, and the one guy pulled out their revolver, and then they started doing this with the guy who was dressed in the, it's not a bear shoe, it's the other thing, which I forget, but that kind of skirt that's worn on traditional occasions that made of civet and various things. And then the guy in the dress started acting like a woman, and it was all very bizarre, but it's like an amazing series of things happened in the frame, you know, from this kind of very much a shoot me moment, which was of limited interest, but the light was nice, and in one of the, you know, there's the woman drinking beer and looking on, and it's quite a cool scene. And then all these things happened, and some of them are still perplexing to me, to be honest, because nobody can tell me about the dress wearing thing, about it. And every one of these in Carter, or only in Carter, I think, I've never seen it on a kind of purely Zulu event. It's like kind of a non-partisan Zulu traditional event or celebration. I've never seen men dressed as women. What you often have is like these women in ceremonial dress at the front of an MP or regiment or fighting group, geeing men on and showing their butts and lifting their stuff and showing off their boobs, and it's like all quite meant to insult the enemy, essentially. But this thing of the guys, it's what, 92 to, well, 99 till now is 19 years. 19 years I've been asking everyone I can, what does it mean? Who are these people? And everyone just laughs, okay? So, I thought it was one of these kind of like a prison thing, a vafe, you know, a wife, because it's an all-men's hospital, more or less, in those days. I thought it was like a sex thing, is this? And I just cannot get a straight answer. So during the making of the movie, the producers and the director had gotten a couple of Zulu experts, allegedly. Basically, they were actors who were Zulu. But they promised to find out, okay? Well, it's Hollywood, right? They promised to find out. And I even put forward the suggestion that like prisons and like pure male communities within normal communities elsewhere, there's often a pseudo-wife, right, or a series of them. And I'm not sure they'll find out. Everyone came back and said, no, it's definitely not that. It's just a thing for fun. And it's only during the marches that these people wear dresses. But when I used to go up and approach these people during the marches and chat and ask them, and always got embarrassed, never gave me a straight answer. So anyone can supply me with that answer. let us know. The hostel war, which is that period from late 89, mid 89, through to 96 essentially, was an adjunct to the war of KwaZulu-Natal, which was the ANC Inkatha War. But that involved, was pure Zulu on both sides, right? Whereas up here on the reef, and I'll explain a little bit, but I mean, most of you know, so if I'm boring you, sorry. But the reef is the Witwatersrand, which is where the gold came near the surface, and where Joburg started, and all these towns, Randfontein and Springs and Florin and all these places, it's where the mines were. And that's where 1916, 1908, the poll tax, the hut tax, was designed for people who had to earn money to pay their tax to the government. So the only way they could earn money was by working in labour, which was primarily mines. So that's how they got cheap labour for the mines. And people were put into hostels. And even after radical changes in the years, from, in 100 years, it stayed that way. Migrant labour continued to come into hostels. And these hostels were there were municipal hostels and corporate hostels, mines and stuff, but they always housed people in ethnic groups, much like the townships. Each township was never mixed. People were moved from where they were in white land into ethnically pure zones, because that's what the whole thing was about, right? So you would have a Zulu part of Tokoza, a Sotho part of Tokoza, whether it was Northern Sotho or Pedi and all that kind of stuff. It was a bit blurred. So the hostels tended to be strong bases of ethnicity. And during the war, at the start of, in fact, back in 76, this is what you asked. Anyway, back in when you start explaining, it never ends. Anyway, for various historical reasons, the townships along the reef, including all of them, the hostels were primarily ethnically based, and the ones that were predominantly Zulu soon did ethnic cleansing and cleaned people out. Like, for example, Kanyaloni in Polombark. The majority of people there were Xhosa. The Zulus would come ethnically cleansed from there, like August of 1990. And then everyone moved into these Kumalo Street hostels, a band of 3 hostels, and there's just like all the houses around, all that just became this kind of Inkatha territory. So in downtime, in the beginning, in 1990, was quite nice. You could go into the hostels, you could chat, you could talk. It was quite fascinating. I'd spent several years before going into various hostels, but when it became quite violent, that first year was okay, you could get access, and then I think from 91 onwards it was clearly a no-go zone. You just really couldn't. It was just not possible, except on rare occasions. So this was one of those rare occasions. And there's a certain culture within hostels that is outside. It's a men's culture. It's a culture of people dissociated from their usual communities, and it's booze and drugs and sex and violence, and all these things came together. So it was never casual at these times in these hostels. There's always an edge, So, right, that's it. Enough. In a city.